next, we've got Caroline from WTax.
Hi everyone. So Caroline from WTax. For those who may not know WTax, a withholding tax recovery company on foreign investments. So my best friend here, Roisin, has already spoken to tax. It seems that we do have a tax session today rather than anything else. So I hope you all enjoy tax as much as I do, and you're not wishing that you're upstairs with the drink session. I know which session that I choose anyway. So tax. I'm not sure what the thoughts on tax is in the room, but a clear observation when it comes to tax is constant change, analogous to tax relief on foreign investments. But today, across the institutions that we work in, do we attribute the relative resources that are required for tax to be able to understand the implications and also to enable us to achieve the best end investment yields? So when it comes to tax planning, just a quick show of hands, for example, is it high priority, medium, low priority? I'll start with high priority. No. Medium? Okay, low. I presume everyone else is low, which scares me. I mean, Roisin was mentioning earlier, tax needs to be at the top of everyone's agendas nowadays because it's a fast changing environment. And if we don't necessarily look ahead to understand tax technical changes, understand investor entitlements, where relief at source mechanisms may be available, there's a possibility that any type of investment will be basically forfeiting millions. So just by way of example, across Europe annually, there's 14 billion euros of tax that's forfeited by investors because tax relief isn't claimed. That may be because the processes are complex, guidelines aren't clear, perhaps in the custody chain, tax services are restricted for certain and understandable reasons. But if we have an understanding of this on the outset, then we can better target our investments and understand where we need to appoint the appropriate resources to benefit from tax relief. So by way of example as well, just bear with me, even though I work for a tax technology company, I'm not very technological myself. Here is a great example over the past 12 to 18 months of tax market changes that have arisen and that continue to arise. I won't go into depth on all the changes, but just for example, in the US, the migration to a T+1 trading platform as of May next year. On the outset, this may seem that it won't have any tax implications whatsoever. It's trading, it's settlement. However, if we think about tax relief entitlement, positions that are entitled to tax relief need to be communicated to, in the US, what will be a QI, on or before record date of an event so that you can receive the best rate on pay date. What happens if there are settlement fails, which at the beginning of this migration, there are sure to be settlement fails, as we saw within T2S. T2S alone across Europe, there's still billions of costs linked to settlement fails trades. So another kind of angle to be considering tax here. Germany, I think Germany is quite a complex one. It's obviously a huge foreign investment market, lots of changes on the horizon there from the German authorities. Moving to an electronic portal, great. Digitization is welcomed across the industry, but what does this mean for the end investors? Custodians are struggling to use the new portal simply because the infrastructure isn't built for huge institutions that manage volumes. And so German reclaims across the market have been put on hold for a year. So what this means to investors, to tax yield on investments, but then also at the German tax authority level, lots and lots of delays, no responses to enquiries because of the incessant amount of tax reclaims that are coming through their door before the cutoff point in July. Another change in Germany, which is going to be huge and it's going to impact the whole chain of intermediaries, is the move to transaction reports in 2025. So you may be familiar with tax vouchers today to justify where tax relief is eligible if you submit a claim, for example. Moving to transaction reports means that any local German agent will be required to report on every single German ISIN to the authorities. details not only on payments, not only on beneficial owners, but trade information, counterparty information, contracts, types of trades, trade dates, record dates to determine the cum-ex situation of tax relief. So this is all complex, and how is this going to be managed across the different institutions and communicated up the stream? The EU proposal, I know Roisin touched on this earlier, FASTA. I won't go into too many details on this, but the European Commission has recently launched its proposal for a harmonised, more efficient process across Europe. You know, I'm not a pessimist, but will this really improve the system today? I think if the EU member states all vote in approval of the directive, this doesn't necessarily mean that each jurisdiction will follow a single process. More than likely, each jurisdiction will implement its own independent processes. And then again, for the investors, how do they continue to manage the different tax relief processes across those European markets? It's a massive challenge. So this is where tax planning is important. And from a challenge perspective, I mean, I'm not sure how many people of you are familiar with the hands-on operational side of tax when it comes to investment, but, you know, where's the pain points? Is it the manual processing? Is it the manual reconciliation of data, reg reporting, tax technical understandings? These are all a few examples of where, you know, it is a challenge. And the reason that I wanted to raise that point for awareness is twofold, really. It's to validate the trends that we're seeing across the market as a tax technology company. And it's also to act as a catalyst so that we begin to analyse across our operating models where, for example, we may need to outsource certain parts of the business model for efficiencies, cost-saving exercises, etc., or where data tech solutions are required. So how do we go about this, especially in institutions where, for example, not enough budget is attributed to tax, because tax isn't, as we all saw at the beginning, necessarily considered an important point in investment, although it should be. There's no budget, there's no appetite. Partnering, finding a strong partnership with tax experts is crucial, especially in the environment that we are evolving into today. That partner can help to build and deliver, whether that be outsourcing strategies, whether that be interface portals, for example, for end investors, for institutional investors, to simplify the tax relief process, whether it be for relief at source, reclaims, ECJ, for example, and then also a very, very important point, collecting data. Data, again, another minefield, but we know that the way in which the tax arena has evolved today, tax authorities aren't just granting tax relief looking at a tax form, not like the good old days, let's say. They are really looking at the detail. They want the data. And without that data, you'll probably receive a rejection nowadays. So the collection of data is difficult. I'm not sure if you agree with kind of the observation we've been seeing, but generally the tons of data that's out there, it's often siloed across different infrastructures, but how do you bring that data together? Sorry, just looking at my time there, I'm getting carried away. So the data technology point is very important, and there's an abundance of solutions. You know, I think Roisin also touched upon this earlier with the Microsoft example. The use of APIs, the use of blockchain, the use of machine learning to be able to manage that data and then produce that into data sets that tax authorities are looking for, and also tax investigations that are on the increase as well. So to conclude, harnessing on that technology point is super important. It allows you then to be agile and to adapt to the change. I mean, look at the change, and that's only a handful of changes. How do you manage the change and then navigate through the tax authority scrutiny? It is difficult, it's a challenge. When you find a partner, you may also find that there's the tax expertise that you need there, which doesn't necessarily bring about fresh ideas or challenge the status quo, but it can also fill the talent gaps, because today, I mean, I'm sure that we're all in agreement there, talent gap is another issue across the industry. So tax and innovation, I think they go together, not just a buzzword, definitely a catalyst for proactive transformation into this digital era that tax is evolving into. So I will stop there. Just made it.
Time for questions.
Yeah.
Any questions? No. So I'll ask the question then. You mentioned skills gap, and having worked in custodians, it was very clear that the amount of people that really understood tax within those organisations is very, very thin. So is that continuing to be the case, and is that why organisations such as yourselves are able to offer these sort of services?
Yeah, exactly. I think the point was mentioned earlier, you know, within the custody world and the tax world nowadays, it's shifting more towards data analytics, technology. There's a small, I guess, generally there are small teams that may be experts within the custodian world, but because custodians don't have the necessary budget to be able to offer custody tax services as they need to into this evolving world, it's really becoming a challenging environment for them. Hence, the external solutions are required to support. Thank you. Thanks.